Get to the church plant! Get to the church plant! Go! Now!
I'm Pete Mitchell, and he's Peyton Jones, and you're listening to Hardcore Church Planting, the companion podcast for the Church Planter Podcast and Church Planter Magazine. Each week, we'll bring you interviews from planters who are in the trenches making it happen right now. These active church planters bear it all, share their successes, their failures, and what they'd wish they'd known when they were first starting out. Listen in to discover how God is working in their church plant. Hey, Church Planter, this is Pete Mitchell.
And this is Peyton Jones.
Coming to you for Hardcore Church Planting, the midweek podcast. And as always, we've got a hot, very hot guest on this particular episode of the old Hardcore Church Planting. So Peyton, introduce the guest.
So we have Hugh Halter, voted the sexiest man in Christianity and Christendom. And he's on here. He's the founder. We had to do that, Hugh. We had to, he's naked on the next issue on the cover of Church Planter Magazine. You can catch that. He's very discreetly holding. I'm sorry. I got to stop there.
I don't have time to edit, man. I'm catching a plane after this. So
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So Hugh is he's an author. You know Hugh. He's written all kinds of books like Anne, The Tangible Kingdom, Flesh. He's got a brand new book called Brimstone. And he is the founder of Missio. You know of that. A lot of the missional conversation came out of the stuff that Hugh and his buddies have done. And he is now the U.S. director of Forge America. And Hugh, welcome on, man.
Glad to be here, guys, I think.
I think we've had you more than any other guest. That's kind of weird.
I think that might be actually accurate.
Yeah, I think you're the guest who actually cares the least whether you're on here or not. So,
It's almost like Jimmy Kimmel's sideshow. Just always there for you whenever you need me. So.
Absolutely.
I like it. Well, one of the things, Hugh, that we always like to do when we start out the podcast is ask you how you came to faith. Even though we've had you on the podcast before, the nature of podcasting, not everyone has heard those previous interviews with you. So why don't you tell us how you came to faith and how you got started in church planting?
I was in 5th grade in a Nazarene church, and I always loved to hear sermons from like 3rd grade on. So I was skipping out on my Sunday school, listening to a sermon. Guy did the old school fire and brimstone message. I responded, walked down the aisle. So that's why I still like the old school local churches, because it made it for me. So that was my story.
Great. How did you get started doing the church planting stuff?
I did 10 years of Youth for Christ in Portland, Oregon, kind of inner city stuff. A lot of kids came to faith, and we were trying to plug them into local churches, and that was a disaster. So my wife finally said one day, she goes, "Screw it, let's just try to start something for all these people that we've seen come to faith." So there wasn't a whole lot of books on church planting at the time. There was some Bill Hybels stuff and some Peter Wagner stuff, but that was the first time I'd actually ever thought about being a pastor. But we just started to gather people in our homes, and then eventually we had like a normal Sunday thing. But we were mostly a network of communities around Portland, so that was kind of our entrance in. I don't think I ever thought I would plant. Even the story in Denver, which was our second plant, we were actually desperately not trying to plant. And that the house started filling up again and started multiplying the good news of what that experience was. So been at it for about, I would say, 25 years, 15 years of church planting, 2 churches. So.
Yeah, I would say that's where most of the good stuff for me happened, was when I wasn't trying. And I was telling God, no, I don't want to do this. And stuff just kind of happened around it. Well, a lot of your experience, man, kind of, I've read all your books actually, and that's saying a lot, because I don't read a lot of everybody. But what I love about you is you and I kind of follow a similar track, in that you have always had to work other jobs, and so the title I didn't specifically mention was bivo, because you've got an event coming up, and we actually wanted to to hear about a couple of the events that you've got coming up. But one of them is the Bivo National Conference, and its subtitle is Money, Mission, and the Local Church. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, that was, Peyton, that was our story. I think at the time I was living it, I didn't think there was that much that was weird about it, because I think I was still trying to make a full-time living. So I probably viewed Bible like everybody else as kind of a stepping stone to where you ultimately want to get. But now looking back, I think it was a key piece of what God was doing, because it seems to be the wave of the future right now. As the church continues to implode, every denomination is on the decline, which means the financial model of supporting our denominations and our Bible schools to our, youth camps, that's all going to begin to struggle as the church keeps struggling. So it's going to put us back in a pure missionary context, and missionary contexts require that you have more missionary forms of funding. So I'm trying to present Bivo not as a better way, but as another way that you can fund your livelihood and your calling. And where it used to be perceived, again, kind of negatively, I'm actually finding a ton of people that actually want the lifestyle. They actually feel like they would be able to follow Jesus better. They would do church more in the context of a team, as opposed to being paid to be the single leader doing all the stuff you don't want to do. So I just think there's a ton of upsides to it, even though it is a struggle. So we're going to do a national conference just to begin that dialogue, and not paint a positive spin on it, but really let people process the difficulties and the possibilities of rethinking everything in relationship to money and mission.
So you very, I would say, powerfully in your book, Bivo, outline the ways that a guy can be freed up to do ministry and work a secular job at the same time. How do you through 8th, you can go to missionalchurchnetwork.com, Google Missional Church Network, and then check out Bivo Conference. And if you just look up Bivo Conference and Google that, it'll come up, but you'll know that you're in the right spot when you get to the Missional Church Network site. And Hugh will be there. All these guys that are at these conferences, if you go to conferences, they're very, very accessible. They'll sit down, they'll chat with you, they'll listen to your story, and it's meant to be intimate. So that's going to be at Denver Seminary, August 7th through 8th. You can go to the website. You can register online. It gets cheaper. It gets more costly by the day, but check that out. And I'm going to hand over to Pete. Pete has a question that's been burning.
It's the question that everyone actually listens to this podcast for, Hugh. So I'm not even sure who we should ask it of, Peyton, but
well, let's give some background first to you. Here's the deal, man. On our podcast at the very